Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll get an update on what is happening in the local agriculture industry on Sarnia Lambton Daily on your TV. Welcome back. We have heard from many industries and organizations throughout Sarnia Lambton during this pandemic with updates on how they are coping. Agriculture is a big part of Sarnia Lambton, so we wanted to check in with that sector. Joe Dickenson runs Dickenson Farms in Oil Springs and joins me by telephone right now. Joe, what are you seeing in the industry right now?
To steal from Charles Dickens, it's the best of times and it's the worst of times. Those of us that are set up for direct sales to consumers are being run off our feet right now, and our problem is keeping inventory in stock. However, those that are relying on processing of any sort are having problems with bottlenecks when it comes to their processing plants being able to take their crop in. They're getting their prices slashed in some cases, and meanwhile, those prices aren't showing up in the stores. So it's really causing an issue with the whole supply chain.
I know there are a lot of chains in the industry when it comes to getting product from the farm to the consumer. If one part of that chain gets upset, does that really cause a domino effect?
It absolutely does. I mean, we heard about the dairy farmers there where they had to dump milk because the plants weren't set up to do anything on a smaller scale. And when they lose all those big industrial contracts, like whether it be restaurants or schools or that sort of thing, and they're trying to go from bulk down to individual packaging, they just can't retool on the fly. And we have some massive problems in the beef industry here as well.
We are joined by Joe Dickenson of Dickenson Farms in Oil Springs by telephone. Now, Joe, we hear from government officials every day. What can the government do to help this industry?
One of the things that we're pushing for at the beef farmer side of things is that we'd really like to have what's called a set-aside program. So farmers normally would be shipping a certain number of animals over the course of weeks or months or what have you. And what we're asking for is for those farmers to be paid to hold on to those animals until we can get through this supply glut so that there's a more consistent feeding of the processing industry. That's one of the big asks that we've been talking about from the Ontario side of things on the beef side. Another is to improve our risk management programs. We've had farmers voluntarily sign into these programs for a long time, and they've been partially funded at the provincial level, but the feds haven't come on board. So we're asking for the province to make more of a commitment to these programs and for the feds to put in their portion as well.
For people not familiar, tell us about Dickenson Farms and how things are going right now.
So I'm a birth-to-beef operation in Oil Springs. I have about 65 cows, and I raise all of my cattle right to market weight. I also have a bit of a partnership with the Tin Fiddler in Sarnia, as well as the Refined Fool, where I'll take spent grains from their brewing process to feed the animals here. And then last year I moved about 18 to 19 animals through the freezer trade. This year we're already surpassed 20, as in pre-booked or sold, going into July. So the demand has absolutely skyrocketed, And thankfully, my parents also have a beef farm at Sarnia. And so once we run out of cattle that are market weight at my place, we can switch to their farm as well to start filling orders.
Now, Joe, it sounds like because you do have direct-to-consumer access, that makes things not too bad for you and quite busy, but I've got to think there are challenges as well.
Well, that's exactly right. Everything's a little bit more challenging if you have something break down, if you're trying to get parts, and even if you have an animal that needs some veterinary assistance, trying to make sure that everybody's safe in that circumstance as well. You also want to be a little bit cautious because it wouldn't take much for one of our local processing plants here in Lambton County to be shut down. And that's a pretty scary situation because we're really lucky to have some good ones here. And if one of them had to slow down, that would definitely cause some issues as well.
Well, thanks for joining us, Joe. That was Joe Dickenson of Dickenson Farms in Oil Springs.